Hey folks, my name is Pete Lewis. This is Claire Church. We've been doing these interviews called Muse Talks, and it's a way to get some of the musicians online and have them tell you what's been going on in their lives during the pandemic, and also to raise some funds for these musicians or just musicians in general who've lost all their work. This afternoon, we have the esteemed Brad Goode, who has been a great friend of ours for years and years. Internationally known trumpet player, professor of jazz and trumpet at CU Boulder. Brad, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Okay. Yeah. Have you been getting more practicing in during this time or?
I have. I've been getting about 4 hours a day in.
Oh.
Yeah, it's feeling good.
The response I get from a lot of musicians is like, this is a big drag, but I am getting in a lot more time on my horn or my axe, whatever I play.
Yeah,
In that respect, or they're listening to music more, or just so it's given us some breathing time. Even though they've lost all the gigs, they're able to do these other things. So when things get back, maybe it'll be good.
yeah. I'm still teaching my regular schedule at the university. We've moved everything online.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm teaching on Zoom and on FaceTime and on Skype. So the university determined that it was essential for professors who needed their offices to teach to be able to come in and use their offices. So here I am in my office and have a few classes today, but I'm doing it from here and practicing my trumpet in between. And this way I save my marriage so I don't drive my wife crazy with all the trumpet sounds at home in the
Yeah.
tiny little house. Yeah.
What are you finding some of the frustrations with doing lessons through Zoom or Skype or whatever you're using?
Well, with lessons, it is a little difficult because we can't play together. And so a lot of times in lessons, if I'm playing an etude with a student, we'll play that etude in unison, and then we'll play with play along tracks and trade choruses and trade eights and talk about things in between. And so we're not able to do that. So I'm having to ask my students to come to each online lesson with more questions and more things they want to talk about. And so we're getting into technical questions and philosophical questions, and we're playing for each other, but we're not playing together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's difficult, and it's difficult to hear the real quality of somebody's sound and technique via the compressed microphones and things like that. But we've got to do what we've got to do, so we're trying to make the best of the situation. Some of my students are in places where they can't play their open trumpet.
Mm.
They're in apartments or something, so they're having to play with their Harmon mute or something like that.
We found that we bought a mic, one of these mics, and that's made a huge difference on our end. But it's
Yeah,
you can't expect everybody to get a microphone.
yeah.
What about you and staying healthy, staying busy at home, and things like on a daily basis?
Well, I've been jogging. My gym is closed, obviously, and so my routine of going to the gym every day has been disrupted. But the weather's been nice, so I've been outside jogging and doing some hikes here in Boulder, and trying to stay healthy every day. And um, I'm still trying to kind of work my way back from the injury to my lip I had last year. So I've been able to use this time to make a little more progress, and things are actually feeling excellent right now. I feel like in the last few weeks, I've maybe come close to being back to 100%. Just as all the gigs are gone, I'm ready for them.
Yeah.
Do you see this, what's happening now, do you see this continuing, or do you think things are going to go back to where they were? Or is there something that's going to change that's going on now that maybe will continue within uh, the professional.
I know that all the businesses that are closed are very anxious to get back to being open, and all the clubs that are closed are very anxious to have music going again and have audiences. And of course, we don't know how long it's going to be before that happens, but I hope that most people like you guys can hold on until that does happen. And I know that people will want to be out and be active and be doing things when they haven't been able to go out for so long. So I'm hoping it doesn't change things too much. Um, I'm very fortunate in having a full-time teaching job and having a salary that I'm okay financially for the time being, and until things turn around. I'm not going to, you know, be unable to pay my mortgage or anything like that. But a lot of people are in that situation, and for a lot of older musicians, it's difficult for them to stay in shape and stay motivated
Mhm.
when there's not gigs to prepare for. Even for the younger musicians, some of my students are asking me how I stay motivated to practice, because they're having trouble finding the motivation with all of their rehearsals and performances canceled. And, I'm just honest with them. I say, I don't have to stay motivated to practice. I practice compulsively. So for me, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to practice all day, every day anyway. My problem is how not to practice sometimes.
Um, I think once you start to enjoy as a musician the whole process of practicing,
Yeah.
rather than just like it's a means to an end, it's just it is the process, getting into that, and then the motivation thing shouldn't be that hard. You discover new things on your horn, or you write something new, or I mean, it's all just could be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to practice. So when I get up in the morning, oh, I just dropped my mouthpiece under this desk. Hang on a second.
I'm gonna let Jasper
Okay.
upstairs. Come on, Jesse.
When I get up in the morning, I brush my teeth, I have breakfast, and I start practicing. It's the first thing I want to do. I want to get right to it every day.
Yeah.
And I feel very excited about it, and very motivated to get back into it. And during this time, I'm trying to go back and learn lots of tunes that I should have learned years ago, and use the time off to, solidify my repertoire. I know all the old tunes. I don't know all the new tunes that my students are playing and that people are into now. So I'm having to play catch up with that and learn a lot of those things. And I'm trying to learn a couple tunes every week and really get them down.
What are some of the tunes you've been working on lately?
Oh, I've been working on some of the Joe Henderson tunes and some of the Wayne Shorter tunes, and some of these things that have become more standard
Hmm.
in people's repertoires.
Can you tell us a little bit about like how you got started playing, and like what I know there was like conversation earlier is like learning jazz, the way you were, but can you just give everybody who's listening a little bit of background, how you grew up, started playing, and your influences and things?
Well, I'm from Chicago, and I took trumpet lessons from a great big band trumpet player. You guys may remember Byron Baxter.
I don't
When
remember him.
Mhm.
I was a kid, and when I was 14, just as I was beginning high school, my family moved to Michigan for 4 years, and then they moved back to Chicago. So I went to high school in Michigan, and when I was in high school, I got the jazz bug by listening to records, and we didn't really have too much jazz around. Um, pe- Nobody in my house listened to jazz, and there wasn't really any jazz going on at my school. So I started seeking out professional musicians in the community and asking them if I could play with them. And people were nice enough to let me do that. So by the time I was 16, I was starting to work gigs with the professional musicians around Michigan. Um, I went to college at the University of Kentucky to study with the great trumpeter Vince DiMartino.
Mm.
And again, we didn't have jazz as part of the curriculum. So I continued learning jazz the same way by, going to school every day and studying classical music and going out at night into the community and trying to play and trying to work gigs and play with the older musicians. And when I was in college in Lexington, Kentucky, I was traveling to Cincinnati and Louisville and places like this to play with people and getting around. As I went home on my breaks and went home to Chicago from college, I started sitting in with people in Chicago. And when I decided to move to Chicago in 1985, I had already met a lot of the musicians, and I just started to integrate into the community there. So my process was always to learn jazz the old-fashioned way by going out and playing and kind of getting my butt kicked, and then going home and trying to figure out what happened and why, and practicing and going back and getting my butt kicked by the older musicians again, and so and learning this way. By the time I was in my early 20s in Chicago, I'd been playing with older musicians for 6, 7 years already. So, I was starting to integrate into the community there.
Wow. It's funny because we just missed each other because we moved out of Chicago in October of '84.
Yeah.
But we met each other in the summer of '84. That summer, you and I met at the Aspen Music Festival.
Yes, that's right.
So that's funny that we just missed each other. And we were talking about this, and I was talking about when I was in Tommy Hilliard's chamber jazz octet, when I must have been like 22, and they were all at least in their 60s. Probably some of them were close to 80. And what I remember is that they played like this incredibly fast version of Cherokee, and it wasn't in the standard key. And it was a Barry feature. It was a baritone sax feature. So I just remember, speaking of getting your butt kicked.
Yeah.
That was a good one. So having talked about your playing a little bit, you think you could play a tune for us?
Sure.
Brad.
Knew what to do with those high Fs or whatever Gs or wherever they were.
Did they peg the microphone?
A little self-preservation.
The mic was like,
little self-preservation. It's okay.
So, I mean, you definitely have your own style, and which is such credit. People hear you or hear somebody on the radio, they know that's Brad Goode, which is great. I mean, I think that's all we strive for. But who are some of the people that you listen to when you're a young guy and you're like, oh man, I just fell in love with that particular sound or that player?
Well, I was talking about this with one of my students yesterday, actually. I listen to everybody. I listen to all the great players on record, but I really feel that I was influenced more by the people I was meeting in real life, the local players and the people I had exposure to. I mean, so the people who were really big influences on me, obviously, my trumpet teacher, Vince DiMartino, was a big influence on the way I look at the trumpet and my sound and my approach to the instrument and his playing. Um, I also really loved Ira Sullivan's trumpet playing as well as his saxophone playing. And then I really think the biggest influences on the way I play were the saxophone players Von Freeman
Hmm.
and Ed Harris. And I spent a lot of time with all of those people, listening to them, playing with them. Also, an alto saxophonist in Lexington named Duke Madison was a very big influence on my style and on the way I play.
Hmm.
Um, I think all of those people, more so than any of the historical greats on the records, although I loved everybody, all the great trumpet players and from Louis Armstrong, Roy Eldridge, Dizzy, of course,
Mm-hmm.
Clifford Brown. Uh, One of my particular favorites was Booker Little.
Yeah.
Um, but I really think, um, in terms of having a unique style, part of part of that comes from the fact that I never tried to imitate anybody. I've never transcribed. I never transcribed solos, and I never learned through imitation. I learned more through exposure and osmosis in a way, and trying to process things through my own filter. Um, I didn't go to jazz school, so I didn't have teachers telling me what to play or how to play or how to learn. So I was kind of left on my own to figure that out. And it's not like I didn't know that people were studying by transcribing. I just kind of thought it wasn't for me. I kind of looked at it in a way as a form of cheating.
Huh, I used it differently. I wasn't like, I was using it as an ear training exercise, because I studied with Joe Daly and
Yeah.
and also Dave Liebman, and both Joe would have you play tunes in all keys every day, and I thought that helped me more than anything else I ever did. And then when I studied with Dave Liebman, he had you transcribe solos and then just sort of internalize the style with the philosophy that you would never do it exactly like that person. And for me, that was super duper helpful. But I also see where you're coming from. I mean,
Well,
I've heard other players say that.
I certainly respect that, and I see the value in that, and I advise people to do that stuff. It's just that that's not the path that I followed, you know. And when people ask me, well, how do you sound so unique? Well, I think the answer is, if I do sound that unique, it's because I've always sounded like me. I never made an attempt to sound like someone else.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, I play the way I play.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Like some years ago, before I stopped playing the saxophone, I remember saying to Pete, yeah, I guess like this is how I sound. This is my sound.
Yeah.
This is,
Well, and you have your own sound too, and both on saxophone and on drums. You
yeah,
know, you're definitely recognizable.
for better or worse.
Well, yeah, I always thought that was the goal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I just heard an interview by Michael Brecker, and he was saying, you have to just learn to accept that and roll with it. It's like, this is how you sound. This is you. And just go with that, man. And
Yeah.
don't don't try to be other people, learn from other people, but this is what's coming out of you, your sound, how your concept is. Just go with that, because that's uniquely you, which is cool.
Yeah. And, with all three of us, we knew Chris Potter
Mm-hmm.
when he was a young teenager, and he basically sounded like he sounds now.
Mm-hmm.
He's much more developed, and he's added a lot of artillery to his repertoire, but he sounds the same. He has the same personality in his playing. And I think, your way of processing and hearing is something you're born with, and your job is to develop and build with your own natural gifts, not necessarily to lose that in pursuit of sounding like someone else.
Would you have anything you want to share with the people listening? Any advice, wise sayings, either about what's going on right now or just in general?
Oh, I don't know if I have any wise sayings or not, but I hope everybody can hang in there through this crisis and stay healthy and stay positive and keep practicing and be ready for some amazing music that's going to happen when we can all get back together again. I know it's going to be very exciting, and there'll maybe be a new appreciation for just how fortunate we've been to have the scene that we have. I know here in Colorado, it's a very, very vibrant, healthy scene with lots of new young players coming in all the time. And it keeps me excited to play with all these young people and to hear what they're doing and to hear the new things they're coming up with. And I think it's going to be even more exciting after we've been separated to get back together and play again.
Would you have time to play us one more something? Maybe try it with a mute this time.
I'll try with a mute. Let me grab a mute.
Let's see if that works better.
What should I play?
What should you play? What should you play?
Random licks.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
improv.
Yeah. It doesn't like the mute. Yeah, man.
Randomness.
Randomness. That's where we live, in a state of randomness now. All right, man.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
man. Thanks for your time. Say hello.
You guys.
Yeah.
And don't forget that we have the great jam session at your place, the Muse, on Monday nights. And when we're all healthier and we're able to get back to it, that's the place to be. And hope to see everybody there very soon.
All right.
That sounds
Thanks,
great.
Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you, man.